Welcome back. Hello and welcome to our second panel of the evening for our Growing the Game event. And this panel is entitled A New Era of Women's Basketball, Perspectives from Beyond the Court. I'm really excited about this panel and getting into the discussion of the culture of basketball space. And to moderate this panel, it's my privilege to introduce Savanna Hamilton, who is the sideline reporter for the Toronto Raptors on Sportsnet. Previously, Savanna worked with MLSE, producing multiple campaign videos such as Raptors Black Lives Matter, Women's History Month, Hold Space, and more. She also hosted Raptors Today on NBA TV Canada and Swish, and Inside the WNBA, as well as reported for Raptors 905. So please join me in welcoming Savanna.
Oh my gosh, well, thank you so much, Kaylee. I appreciate the warm welcome. It's an honor to be here, and I'm just so fortunate to be surrounded by such amazing, incredible women. And just, starting with the previous panel themselves, like I took away a lot of information. I love the conversation you guys had. So let's hope that we could keep it strong and keep it going in this one. So without further ado, let me just get into it tonight. So this panel is going to be called A New Era of Women's Basketball Perspectives from Beyond the Court. Now, in this session, we are joined by three women who promote positive change through basketball and its role in shaping the cultural identity. I love this discussion already. Trust me, guys, it's gonna be a good one. It'll center around the ways which basketball has impacted culture, but then also vice versa, how culture has impacted basketball as well. And that means music, film, fashion, so many different social movements within that realm. This discussion will also learn about individuals' love of the sport and basketball and what led them to their current roles, the future of basketball culture, and what it means to look at basketball from a different perspective. So without further ado, let me get into the panelists here. So panelists, if you could turn on your cameras if you haven't already. First things first, I'm going to introduce my good friend, Tenneya Martin. See you all the time around the gym, girl. But I have so much respect for her because she is an urban mixed Cree woman that has familial ties to the Sweetgrass First Nations and James Smith Cree Nation. She's currently in her second year with the Raptors Culture Department, and her role focuses on the importance of internal equity, diversity, and inclusion policies, procedures, and practices that impact staff and players. In addition to that, her role is also a co-chair at MLSE's Women Employee Inclusion Group. So game changer right there. And then of course, to follow that, we got Shelby Weaver, also an amazing person around the gym, a good friend as well. Shelby is the co-founder and co-owner of Make Way in Toronto, the first standalone women's sneaker boutique in Canada that's also 100% female owned and operated. Love that. Love, love, love it. If you ever go to the store, it's incredible in there. The vibes are amazing. She's also a boss in the fact that she's a director of basketball operations and culture for the 2019 championship Toronto Raptors. She's also the owner of Mac House, a self-service sneaker customization studio and experience. And she resides, of course, in Toronto, but is a graduate from St. Francis Xavier University. And she was born and raised in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So shout out to the East Coast there. Now, I've seen her work on Instagram everywhere. She's so talented behind the camera. Sarah Del Angel, talk about culture building. Sarah is a full-time freelance photographer who specializes in sports, mainly basketball, behind the scenes, as well as lifestyle. Now, her dream all started because she wanted to find a space in basketball where she could play with her friends and families, but she also wanted to get creative with the lens of the camera as well. So she started out in a small league in Ajax, and she brought her first camera there. And then, well, she never looked back. So, girl, I think when the moment we all have that, like that sense of this is where I belong, we don't ever look back in that space too. So I could completely relate to that. Olivia Ho. Now, Olivia is absolutely incredible as well, as she is the owner of the Give and Grow, a community initiative centered around growth. The Give and Grow's mission is to help positively impact and grow the next generation of young girls and women through in-house wellness workshops, female mentorship, and the love of basketball and plants. And I've seen Olivia's work everywhere as well. I've worked directly with her in many different events throughout, everywhere. Olivia is absolutely amazing. And Olivia, I'm going to have to hit you up afterwards for some tips on how to keep my plants alive, because that's been a struggle. But I would love to just jump right into it, because I feel like there's never enough times with topics like these. So I'm going to start broad, I'll even hand it off to you first, Olivia, just to kick us off strong. Where did your love for basketball begin, and how did it influence you to pursue a career in the culture of basketball in this space?
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Savanna. I have a lot of respect for all the women in this panel as well. I admire each and every one of you at a different capacity, that whether I've worked with you directly or not, but I'm really excited to be here. And so, yeah, growing up, I think even just half Filipino, basketball is kind of just written in our culture. It's like every Saturday we would go to the courts and we'd have tournaments, and it'd be a big family kind of feel. And so growing up playing basketball, being around it my whole life, I knew that it was always just something that was going to be a part of my life. And so eventually ended up pursuing a career in healthcare. I was working at the hospital at St. Michael's downtown as a cardiac sonographer. So I did ultrasounds of the heart. In addition to that, I was working at MLSC Launchpad and running all their girls sport programming there. And so I kind of always just kept basketball in the back pocket. I just knew that being active and playing sports growing up was so important to me that maybe it was never going to be a full-time job, or I never thought that it would end up kind of being where I am now. But I kind of just kept it at my back pocket and continued to stay engaged in basketball communities, continuing to working with youth, either in camps, sport programming, through Launchpad, after school programs. And so I kind of just kept that really close to me. And so when making these basketball planters during COVID, and it kind of turning into something so much more, it was kind of just like things were aligning, and it was just a matter of timing of where I was supposed to be. So I think that I've always just been, a big fan of basketball. I played basketball growing up my whole life, and eventually it kind of turned into something that was just more than just a passion, and it's now a really big part of my life. And so I owe a lot to the sport, and I owe a lot to, just the basketball community in general.
Yeah. I love that. Shelby, you're next.
Yeah, I think we all had sort of similar starts, whether it's be growing up and playing or just being a fan of the game. I grew up playing basketball. It was like my first love of anything. It was a sport that captivated me in a way that sort of turned into a career. I kind of grew up I didn't grow up in Toronto, I grew up in Nova Scotia. So I was a lot more looking up to high school and college players versus the Toronto Raptors. When this team came, we didn't get a lot of games in Nova Scotia, so we kind of spent our time with looking up to older people in our community that were playing, and that was a huge reason why I chose the path that I did. My basketball playing career ended a little bit shorter than I would have liked, just given some health issues, and that sort of spurred for me the idea that I didn't want to leave basketball, but I felt like I could impact the game in other ways. But just growing up where I did, going to the school that I did, as great as St. FX was, there wasn't any real sports management programs at that time. Brock was the only one, and it was a more kin-based program that the program had just started. So I took a business degree in finance and just thought, I'd sort of figure it out along the way. And when I graduated in my last year of university, I decided that Toronto was kind of probably the place I would need to go in order to get a job in sports, because it was just something I was really passionate about. So I moved there after I graduated with no job and tried to work as many connections as I could, and ultimately ended up starting basically as a secretary for a guy by the name of Dave Hopkinson, who ultimately went on to be the president and CEO of Madison Square Garden. But he was an incredible leader in the Toronto sports community for many years and sort of took me under his wing. And then I bounced around to the foundation and ran basketball operations for 905 as sort of my first start on the basketball side. The main thing that fueled my transition from being more business side to basketball side was essentially missing that closeness to the wins and the losses. I loved working in sports. I loved the business side, which ultimately spurred my entrepreneur life. But I really missed having an impact on winning, and the business side felt just a little too detached for me. It's massively important to the success of a team, and to the overall value of franchise and what we can provide to build a winning culture. But I just wanted to be a little more in the mix. So when the 905 opportunity came up, I took it and kind of never looked back after that, but did spend a few years on the business side. And then I got my business Louisville with Mackhouse and Makeway many years later.
Shelby, your journey has been just incredible. And like, as everybody has their like origin story of how did you end up here, like I relate to the former athlete part of didn't go your way in terms of injuries. So whew, but hey, you know, if you're not ready to leave, you're not ready to leave. And
we move. And honestly, like having to bow out of playing basketball earlier than I wanted to ultimately was very difficult, but it ended up being the best thing for me because it like backed me into a corner to think about this stuff sooner than I probably would have if it was up to me.
Yeah. And like literally retweet that, same here, same position, in terms of just having a very bad injury in my first year university that still stuck it out for 4 years, but like it got you thinking about what's your next step anyways. But that being said, I got to hand it to Sarah, because Sarah, I'd love to know what got you into this basketball culture space.
My story is it's I guess everyone has their own start to like how they got involved. It wasn't planned. It was literally I have 5 brothers and 1 sister, so I grew up with like a lot of siblings, and that's how I fell in love with the game, was just playing with them. It was either soccer or basketball is what we were doing outside, especially because I'm the second oldest, and then it's like my older brother and then 3 brothers like right after. So it was just me and 4 brothers for a long time. So we played like sports constantly, and it was just something that I just naturally loved. I played basketball in elementary school and in high school, but I was more serious into soccer. But I just loved watching basketball overall more than soccer, even though I played soccer more than basketball. And then I started a league out in Ajax just so me and my brothers can play with their friends. And then from there, social media was kind of starting to take off at that time. So bought my first camera, bought my first lens. Luckily, there was a photographer that played with us, and he kind of showed me how to switch it from auto to manual. And then from there, I just started focusing more on the photo part of it instead of running the league. And I actually used to be a coach on it too. Won a few seasons I even played in it actually. It was an all men's league. And I even played in it a few times just because I was always comfortable playing with guys because of like who I grew up with. And then from there, I kind of stopped playing. I would love to go back to playing actually, just for like the fun of it. But from there, I started networking and making connections. And during COVID, actually, somebody that played in that league asked me to come take photos for Mega City out in Ajax, actually Durham in Oshawa. And then from there, it was literally in the span of like a year, it kind of just took off. I only worked with Mega City for like maybe 1 or 2 seasons. And then I was just like all over the place at that point.
I love that, because like it's you're right, you're all over the place, because now I see you shooting not just basketball but like celebrities and music and so much other stuff. That's like I said, this is the conversation about how it's all connected to each other. So glad to have you here and adding your thoughts. And of course, Tenneya Martin. Tenneya, hi, hello. How are you, girl?
Hi, hello. I don't think my story is as interesting as the 3 that were before mine, but I'll share a little bit. Like Sarah, I guess I could start from scratch. So I started playing basketball like the majority of you, but I was not blessed in the talent portion. I'm small, I was fast, but I wasn't gifted in basketball. So I kind of had to just become a fan. And through becoming a fan, I wanted to work more specifically in the community space. Being in community and grassroots projects, my path crossed with Mega City too. So Mega City is one of the best in the business. Apparently they can spot talent. And then I was introduced to the Raptors 905. And in being introduced to the 905, I think I got bit by the pro bug, and then I just couldn't leave. So I worked with them for a couple seasons, and then with the racial reckoning that happened in 2020, I made my way over to the Raptors culture department.
And I remember that very moment because we were working very closely together too, Tenneya. So I'm going to stick with you because we're going to get into some of the thick of things now. Also, shout out to the 905 for all connecting us together too, you, me, Shelby. I know, right? We just got to stick it out there, yeah? But in your opinion, what are some of the most significant ways basketball has shaped culture beyond the court? I'd love to hear your perspective on this, Tenneya.
I think we are all the prime examples of how it shaped outside of basketball, fashion, music, globalization, business, social justice. Basketball hits all of those things and encourages everyone to get involved. I think social justice from my end, business and Olivia, Sarah and Shelby's, and then globalization. We just make sure that we touch as many things as possible, influence culture outside of our own. Fashion. I don't think that you can have basketball without fashion. I don't think current fashion could happen without basketball. Music, same thing. So I think basketball really impacts our society, and really excited to be involved in that.
I know, just sticking with you, Tenneya, real quick, I know that we've worked on projects together, and correct me if I'm saying this wrong, Laloche or Lalash? Talk to me a little bit about that and how the culture of basketball has like empowered Lalash in that community and the indigenous.
Yeah, I think in social justice, there was a very unfortunate event that happened in the Losh, and Masai and Marcy Ian reached out to them, and they were able to turn that really unfortunate event into a really beautiful relationship that allowed for them to interact with the Raptors and see what opportunities were available outside of their community. So through Giants of Africa, they fly to Toronto and they get to experience the University of Toronto Metropolitan. EMU. And they come and they experience that, as well as Macos, a Raptors game, a Raptors 905 game. They get to experience culture outside that they typically wouldn't have access to. And happy to report that a couple of them are currently enrolled in the University of Saskatchewan.
No way, this is news to me. Okay, I'm very excited about this. Okay, I'm gonna get back to you eventually, Tenneya. I'll probably go a little bit deeper. Olivia, I'm gonna jump to you. I'm gonna mix up the order. I'm gonna keep it fresh so you guys are on your toes. And what are some of the ways, in the most significant ways to you, that basketball has shaped culture beyond the court?
Yeah, I think for me, and probably like just similar to your story, Shelby's story, like you think that you grow up playing basketball and you're going to make it somewhere. And those are the hoop dreams that we all aspire for. And then you realize, yeah, like maybe there is a setback or an injury or something. So similar to me, I had a really bad injury in my last year of high school. And so I think the cool thing about basketball culture is that if you can't actually just be a professional on the court, there are so many ties that are just outside of the court that keeps you connected to basketball. And I think that, growing up, maybe I didn't realize that. And it wasn't until I was immersed in these spaces where basketball culture is being celebrated. So like Tenneya said, through music, fashion, sneaker culture, I was always interested in obviously basketball itself, but what happened kind of off the court is always what really kind of got me into thinking about how we can engage the next generation when it comes to basketball. So understanding that basketball also just teaches so many life skills that can be transferable from the court to off the court. And so how do we now explicitly take these life skills, teach that next generation about these life skills that we can learn on court? And I'm sure every single one of us can attest to the fact that, basketball, we've probably taught us a lot about, business or communicating with others or, being a leader. And so I think basketball culture has just really shaped who I am and who I am as a person. And then that was able to translate into a business side of things, or even just when it came to working with other people and working with other people in the basketball community.
Yep. Literally when I said it off the top, I've seen you in every single space that you can possibly be in. It's incredible considering that you really have a background in medical and you're able to start a business that has been able to impact basketball culture in Canada. And I know that you're being humble right now. It has taken you across the world. Talk a little bit to me about how it has taken you to Mexico.
Yeah, and so I was actually in Mexico City last May, working a little bit with NBA Mexico. And so football, soccer is really big in Mexico, and they're actually making a really big push to promote basketball culture there. And so I was working with some local artists that were painting some basketball courts in Mexico City, and they asked me to run some workshops with some of the participants that they were celebrating in the community that they were painting the basketballs in. So basketball court in. And so I was lucky to kind of I happened to be in Mexico City the exact same time that it was like NBA week in Mexico. And so it aligned perfectly, ended up connecting with some people out there. And then, yeah, hosting workshops across the world. I've been to New York and I've been out west in Vancouver. And yeah, just like you said, it's been a little bit of a whirlwind, and I'm just kind of, yeah, I'm really grateful for the opportunities. And I think even just the connections that I've made through the basketball community, that's actually what's like brought me to where I am today.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'm so like, I'm getting like, I don't know, butterflies or something, just being around such amazing women right now. Sarah, I'm going to jump to you now. But I want to ask you a bit more specific towards the social media space, and the culture aspect of that. You know, obviously, like when you look at culture, you look at Instagram, it's like everlasting. And especially being a woman in basketball and being a digital creator, which sometimes we don't see that. Well, oftentimes we don't see that enough. I remember when I was a producer looking to hire like women who could create content and stuff like that. And it's not that you didn't want to, it's just the fact that sometimes there was a lack of it. You just didn't know where there always like were. And so that's why I have like deep appreciation for your work, because there's so many barriers that you had to cross to get to where you are. But now that you are where you are, what are some of the best practices and organizations that you could do to highlight, what are the best practices and organizations that you do to highlight other women in this space?
Honestly, like when I try to go to like games, or like it being like even like a kids game, or like I try to make effort to go out and look to see if there's other female creators, like photographers and videographers, follow them. Currently, like now that, because I'm getting so busy, if I can't get certain jobs, I will forward it to them and try to get them onto it. Or if I'm going to events, like I'm inviting all their creators with me to come with me, just to like network. And I'm trying to like push that too, especially because I have 3 daughters. So my, like that again, like how I started was kind of like, it was not normal, just because I didn't know what I was going to do career wise for a long time, because I had started having kids like pretty young. And the second they all started like going into school and they were like full time, that's when I started really pushing this. And so for me, it's like super important coming from a mom who has 3 girls to just kind of like give them those opportunities. So like before, when I first started out, probably like 2 years ago, it was really hard to find other female creators. When I was up, even like at Mega City, when I go to like even the Shooting Stars games, like the first game when I went to, I saw like it was all like male, and I was like, where are the women? You know what I mean? And then I end up shooting the home games for them. So like just that, like just going out and looking for those names. And I know last year too, people would ask me to speak on panels for basketball and stuff, and I would try to find like other girls to be on it, because it was hard for them to even find female sports like creators. So that's what I do. I just try to find them and try to like help them as much as I can.
So not only are you like essentially holding space in this, like doing your own work and being professional, but you're also, you know, seeking out and like you're making the initiative. How do you find them? Do you find them like typically like by the courts? If like, because the other thing I think of as well in this space is like empowering them for the opportunity, because then there's like a role of experience that comes into place. And sometimes you have to have XYZ experience before you can even shoot a certain level of event or something like that. So is that kind of like the role that you also seek out to do as well?
I do. You can usually tell just by like the quality, like a lot of the times, like how I find them, because there's so many photographers and videographers that I follow, even male ones. Like if they share a female creator, a photographer, or videographer, I will right away look at their story, look at like who they are, what do they do, and I'll instantly like follow them. And so over time, I just kind of like just gradually see their work. I'm trying to think of other ways. Like, I feel like I should be doing more of, again, this is like really new to me. Like, this is only like probably like my second year of doing this, but like, just in the second year, I've found so many females in the lab, probably like the last 6 to 8 months. So, and a lot of them actually, I find them shooting like lifestyle stuff or concert stuff, and eventually they start doing sports. So then like, that's how I kind of like see them like gradually change, because again, like all of this is kind of like connected: fashion, sports, and basketball, and like even music, it's all connected. So once I find someone doing like fashion or music, more likely they're also going to be doing sports.
Yeah, no, I think that because once again, it ties back to the bigger conversation, and Shelby, I'm going to head to you for this one as well. But like, in terms of like the fact that basketball culture, like music, fashion, they're all linked together. Like there is like an undeniable link between the three of them. And I'm happy that we get to explore this because Shelby, this is kind of just naturally segues to Make Way, and just how you were able to bring the street art and street culture together alongside your basketball background, and impact women at the same time. So I guess the question really is like, how has your approach in business kind of come together with community building and grassroots organizations, as well as empowering women through this different types of outreaches that you do?
Yeah, I think, you know, what Sarah was talking about was like really interesting. And I think it's like a lot of what we try to do at Make Way is, you know, so much of like what Abby and I do in our basketball lives, as well as our personal lives. And now Make Way is like, if you see a problem, like try to fix it, you know, or try to provide a solution. And like Make Way was kind of that solution for us, in the sense of, you know, people kept saying like, oh, you know, it's really hard for women to get access to sneakers. It's really hard for women to find an inclusive place to enjoy sneaker culture. It's really hard for women to get into sneaker culture because it's a little gatekeepy and it's very like not welcoming. And, you know, if you don't know Abby uses this example all the time, but if you don't know the name of the original colorway of this one Jordan, you get it wrong and people laugh at you. And it's just like not really good environment for people to enjoy. And it's sort of ruins it. And I think basketball, you could say some of the same things about it being really well gate kept by a certain group of people. And with any trailblazer, there's like sort of like a ripple effect that comes from behind, and you can either let the ripples fade out, or you can like, I'm trying to use a word that's like doesn't sound, I was gonna say harvest, but that feels like a very like not good term. And I'm sure Tenneya in our culture department would agree, but it's like, how do you keep those ripples going? And honestly, that's how we approach Make Way every day, which is, yes, it's a business. Yes, we need to pay the bills. Yes, we need to sell sneakers. But ultimately our goal is to provide this like really inclusive gathering place and community hub for women to come together and grow with each other and learn about sneakers, but also, you know, meet each other and meet women who are in careers that they aspire to be in, or side hustles that they want to start, or, you know, just something that they want to have as a hobby. And like that type of community building, we think will lead to like that next generation of art ball culture creators and leaders and GMs and fashion designers. And so, you know, the thing that we do at Make Way, which I think is very different, is we don't approach it as a business. We approach it as like, how do we impact community? And the business impact of that is good. Like it works, you know, and people can tell when you are doing things for the sake of community versus the sake of revenue, and won't engage with it. But we just believe that if you lead with community and you lead with the goal of providing spaces that are going to allow people to explore the things that they care about, the rest will fall into place on its own. And the intentionality that it takes to do that is more difficult than I ever thought it would be. Like, you know, me and Abby are women in basketball and in sneakers. It's like, yeah, we should know what we're doing, right? Like in theory, we're literally living the lives of the people that we're trying to like focus and target on. But the intentionality it takes to every day look at what you're doing and be like, am I providing opportunities? Am I providing the space? Are we doing this in a way that is going to be conducive for our ultimate goal? You know, for shooting a Jordan campaign, we look at every role in that campaign, from graphic designers to photographers to stylists to makeup artists to PAs to, you know, anybody that touches that project. We want to be a member of our community. Like you can't just hire people all the time. And then part of the other thing that we do is we try to sometimes hire people before they're ready. So say we need a photographer for an event. We've done it where we'll hire, you know, a well-known photographer like Sarah, who we know we don't have to give a ton of direction. Sarah knows what we like, but we also may hire a young photographer from Shoot for Peace to, you know, come on and shoot. And so they get the experience that they need in order to continue to develop their career. They get to make connections at that event. They get to work with somebody like Sarah at that event. But without the pressure of like failure, because I think what we all know is like part of this journey comes with a lot of failure, and failure is a great thing. It's a great teacher, but we also want to help members of our community fail in like a productive way and in like a safe way, because so much of this industry feels sort of do or die. And that can be really intimidating to where people don't want to start, you know, and that's what holds a lot of people back. So we just really try to like drop the barriers, drop the pressure, and facilitate an environment where people just enjoy what they do and they can explore, you know, anything that they're interested in, whether that be for career or just for hobby. Like there's nothing wrong with just wanting to watch basketball and know more about it. You know what I mean? You don't have to want to be a GM or want to be a broadcaster. Like if girls just want to learn about like watching basketball because their child just signed up or their partner is interested in it, like there's nothing wrong with that. In the same way, and that's the same way we approach sort of everything that we do.
And that's why I like love Makeway. I've shot so many shows at Makeway as well, just because like it is such a safe environment. I feel like when you originally told me about Makeway, you guys were like basically community first, and then the product. Like, let's make a safe space for women, for women who are interested in learning about basketball, because you say it in sneaker culture, but it can be also just basketball culture in general. How many women on this panel is, you know, you get a question by a guy growing up like, oh, you like Michael Jordan? Well, what did he drop in 96 in the championship game? Like, you know, it's like stuff like that.
Like nobody cares. No, nor is it, that's not
relevant.
That's not a thing that you need to know. Like it's just stupid, like, yeah, I agree.
Exactly. We are already so strapped for time. Tenneya, I'm gonna give you the last question here. And then potentially if we have any extra time, potentially see if we could sneak in a panel question, question from one of our attendees, but we'll do our best. Okay, Tenneya, this is what I'm circling back around to you for. The players of the NBA and the WNBA, they've done an exceptional job of raising awareness for social issues that continue at the forefront of our society. How has that shaped and impacted the game on and off the court?
Wow, a big one to end it off. Cool.
Yep.
I think the players have done a wonderful job on the court through the racial reckoning that happened in 2020. You saw them wear jerseys that had statements on them that they felt true to them. They knelt during the national anthem through peaceful protest. They stand up for what is important to them, and they put the pressure on the leagues to make sure that they were also being active in social justice and social impact spaces, which create avenues for myself, to be quite honest. Without the players putting pressure on, our department doesn't exist. So I think they create immeasurable impact in those spaces. Off the court, I think they've always been great at creating impact. But I think there's certain avenues that they're more comfortable in taking impact in. So like a few things to note from our players specifically: Fred, Scotty, Pascal, all taking initiatives into the inequality in education. So them recognizing that there was an issue and making sure that they are active in those spaces through scholarships, through educational resourcing, through tech programs, making sure that they are active in those spaces. Thaddeus Young, making sure that financial literacy is accessible and readily available to those who may not have experienced it previously. And then Scotty apparently is very top of mind. Gary and Chris being really active in their grassroots communities, being really engaged in communities that helped raise them and spoke to them while they were coming up. So I think all teams have their team members who break out and create impact in spaces like those, but those are the ones that speak to us. So yeah.
And I think like, just to give you and Shelby, because I know Shelby, you're a part of it too, like your flowers, like, you know, sometimes those like things can't be done. Like the players don't know where to start. It takes business-minded people like you and Shelby to kind of like, okay, let's start at A and then B, C, D. Like we can go further down this route. So giving you guys your flowers there. We do have a few minutes, like literally 3 minutes. So Sarah, I'm gonna go to you, and then Olivia, I want you to tag on to this. So just jump right in when Sarah's done. For women who are looking to break into culture and profession of the basketball world in a meaningful way, how would you get your first step? How would you do that?
I've had this question asked a lot today, actually. honestly, it's just starting from the ground up. Like, it was literally Mega City one season that I shot. And the connections that I made in that one season, just because of like the photos and my work ethic and just talking to some of the players, are a large part of like where I am today, is because of there's those connections. And like, if I can make those connections in one season, like you can network everywhere. Like anywhere you go, you don't know who's there to like help you. And it's all those people that have advocated for me that I met at the beginning is why like I am here and I'm on this panel. And again, it's your work speaks for itself as well. It's like, don't even focus on like, okay, why can I get this or why can I get that? It's okay, just focus on what you're doing right now and just execute it exactly how you want it to. And then that's going to take you like so far.
Love that. Olivia, just jump right in.
Yeah, sure. So I think in general, whether to look into any basketball space, think about all the things we talked about today, which was all the aspects of basketball culture. So whether it's the actual, like it's actually basketball, or is it the fashion side of it, the community side of it, is it the sneaker culture? So finding things that you're actually genuinely interested in and being very intentional about your time and what you spend doing. So making sure that you do attend some of these events that, Shelby and Makeway runs, or even the Give and Grow, we have events as well for women in the community. And so seeking out these events where you're going to find these like-minded people already. And then like Sarah said, just start from the ground up. It all just starts with this idea of community building and building relationships and friendships without the intention of trying to get a job or without the intention of trying to sell a product. Like just getting to know the women that are in the space or people in the space in general, and being very intentional and genuine about it will take you a lot farther than you think. And I think it's just about breaking out of your shell and being comfortable with taking that risk of just putting yourself out there and connecting with other people. I think all of us in this room are connected in some way, one or the other, but we didn't know each other maybe even just a year ago or a year and a bit ago. And so we're now all immersed in this basketball culture space where we're connected and are able to kind of give each other these alley-oops when it comes to photography or community initiatives or whatever it is. And so once you're kind of in the space and you are being very intentional, it's hard to get out of it, I guess. It's like you're in it and now you're immersed in it.
Now you're stuck and now you can't leave. Well, that question was from Michaela, so shout out to Michaela for that one. Appreciate it. Real quick, I don't know if you guys have been following NCAA Women's March Madness. If you have, everybody has been a reoccurring question. Who are you cheering for in the Final Four? Shelby, if you have been following it, I'll start with you.
We're talking women's, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm like literally obsessed with Dawn Staley. So
Me too.
Like I just, as a human being, like you talk about art, ball culture, like dude, she's so cool. She just like the outfits, her vibe. I think how she coaches her team. I think her and Becky Hammond are a lot alike in how they actually approach coaching way different than a lot of head coaches do. And everybody said that the way Becky coached wouldn't work in the WNBA. Like she creates like, I know some of her coaching staff and I've, heard about her in multitude of different ways, but they build these barriers of like a head coach is supposed to be like this and look like this and talk like this. And both of them, especially Dawn, just is like totally outside of that. And it's led to winning on both fronts. And I just like think that's cool. I like people who do stuff their own way. And she's just like, oh my God, I'm literally obsessed with her. When Kayla interviewed her for the shift, and I was like, I called her and I was like, tell me everything about Dawn. Like, tell me everything she said. I was like, tell me everything.
No, she's so cool. And I know she's worked with the Raptors a little bit as well behind the scenes, but Tenneya, are you following Final Four at all? Have you had the time to?
Of course. How could you not have the time? You gotta make the time. Similar to Shelby, you can't go against a GOAT.
Yep.
She's the one and only.
As I was gonna say, on this panel, is there anybody who's not rooting for Dawn Staley at this point? No, Sarah, you too? Okay, Olivia. All right. I think we're gonna have to wrap it up with that. That's like literally like the only right answer at this point. Thank you, women. Like just so much. Literally, when I genuinely mean, I got like butterflies and just like shivers of how important everybody is in their own space in this industry and just like what we've been able to contribute. So thank you for taking the time out of all of our busy schedules over here. We do got to get to the next panel, which is also going to be a really great one. Once again, this has been Canada Basketball Women in Basketball Month presented by Penny Appeal. Canada. So appreciate your time, guys, and stay tuned for the next panel.
Sav, great job. We love you too. Flowers to you, my girl.
Thank you.